So I've seen the question come up a lot. How do I go from just downloading and printing models that other people have made to actually creating my own things? And I'm going to walk you through the process of how I would do that, which is going to be using Onshape. It's completely free for personal use, and you can run it on a Chromebook, your smartphone, your iPad, a MacBook, or a gaming PC. But basically anything you have, even if you don't have a mouse or anything like that, works great with this software. So to start, we're going to go and create an account, and then I'm going to show you how to create your first document and a couple of the tools. You can look a little bit intimidating at first, but for this first video, we're only going to be using maybe 4 tools. So going over to the computer, you should be seeing this screen first, which is saying a lot of different stuff that you can basically ignore. All you're going to do is go over to this big green button over here in the right corner and push sign up now, assuming that you don't already have an account. Then you can put your first and last name. I'm going to just put Boaz. And then an email address. Then you push next. It's going to ask you what you want to use Onshape for. I'm going to just say for fun. For all this stuff, I'm going to just push new to CAD. And then this recommends the free plan here. If it doesn't, then you can click see what other options and then choose the free plan. Push next. It's going to ask you for a phone number. They've never texted me, so I'm trusting them with my phone number, but there you go. And it's going to ask you what CAD systems you're most familiar with. You can just push none here, and then beginner investigation. You have to do US+1 as well if you're in America. It's going to ask if you use CAD for work. You can just click no there. How'd you hear about this? You can say YouTube or just whatever word you want to say there. And you have to just select and check both of these buttons. After that, you can push complete sign up. It's going to create your account and it's going to send a link to your email. Once you get the link in the email, you are going to have to click that in order to log in. So I'm going to just log in here. And you should see the email here from Onshape. You just click on that and then click activate your account. After that, you can create a password. Just create a basic one here. And then click these 2 boxes in order to select it. And with that, your account has been created. I have a pop-up here talking about a webinar. You can just click done or X here in order to get out of that. And then it's going to ask you to set your default units. This is important. Whenever you're designing stuff for 3D printing, generally everything is done inside of millimeters. If you're in America, you're very used to using inches and feet, and that's completely fine for most things, but for CAD applications and specifically designing small objects, I would highly recommend switching over to millimeters. And I'll show you a trick that you can make it where you can still use inches inside your designs. So click here and then change it from inches to millimeters. For the linear acceleration default unit, you can leave that as inches per second. Angles can be degrees, and then everything else is fine. For this, it's going to say your mouse controls. And again, you don't have to use a mouse. You can absolutely use just the touchpad on your MacBook or Chromebook or whatever else. So for panning, you will be clicking in the middle mouse button and dragging it around. Zooming is simple as scrolling the scroll wheel up or down, and then rotating is right mouse button, then drag around. I can show you all that in a second. And then you can set your profile. You don't have to upload a photo or anything. Just put Boaz, and then click next. It's going to then check your browser just to make sure that you're running a browser that supports it. This has worked on Chromebooks, MacBooks, my gaming computer. Any computer that I've worked on with this has been fine, but if you're using a really old internet browser, it may mess up. Then click done. Now you are on the main page. There's going to be a pop-up over here in the corner. You can just click X on that. And then you're ready to go ahead and get started. So you can either click create a document here, or over here in the top left corner, just click create, and then click document. I'm going to name this document 1, and then push create public document here. That is one restriction of the free version. Anything that you create is going to be publicly accessible, meaning that if somebody searches for document 1, they're going to see a list of document 1 files, all this that is publicly accessible, people can look at it and download it. This is not supposed to be used for commercial purposes, really, just for personal hobbyist projects. So if that's a restriction that you're not willing to use, then we can talk about some other CAD softwares in the future video, potentially. Now that you're on this page, you're going to see this front plane, top plane, and right plane, as well as the origin point. You don't have to worry about this too much right now, but I'll show you what all of this does in a second. You're also going to see all of your tools up here. This can look very overwhelming at first. There's about 30 or so tools here. A lot of them also have drop downs to just show additional options. But don't worry, we're only going to be using about 4 today. And so future videos, we may go into some others. Personally, I don't use more than about 10, and most of these I've never even touched. The main tools that you're going to be worried about is Sketch and Extrude. I'm also going to show you a little bit about navigating. So if you have a mouse, you can use the right click button in order to rotate. So click and then hold. If you're on a MacBook or a Chromebook, anything like that without a mouse, what you can do is generally a 2-finger touch on the touchpad, same as right clicking anything else, and then just drag that around. If you want to pan or switch the view, what you can do is click on this cube up here in the top right. That's going to rotate your view around. So for instance, if you click top, it's going to move you to a top view, and you can rotate this around. If you click right, it's going to rotate you to the right view, etc. So I'm going to zoom back out. And then I'm going to push sketch. Whenever you push sketch, it's going to ask you to select a sketch plane. I'm going to select top in this case, but any of them will work for this example. After I click top, you can see that it's not centering the view on that top plane, which would make it just a little bit easier for drawing. So I'm going to go over here and click the top of this cube beside the top right corner. Now that we have the view centered, you can see that the origin point is in the center here. That just makes it easier to define your sketches, which I'll go into a little bit more in the future, but basically this is where we're going to start our sketch. We're going to go over to the corner rectangle tool here. It's about 4 over from the left, and click on that. Then you can see that this is now grayed out, meaning that's activated. We're going to click on the center origin point here, and then we're going to drag over with our mouse or just with our finger on the touchpad until it's making a nice rectangular shape. Now that we have a shape, you can see that some of the lines are blue and some of the lines are black. I'm going to zoom in just by using the scroll wheel here. Generally, you want all of the lines to be black, if you can make them so. How you do that is by using the dimension tool, which is going to be the second tool, or third depending how you count it, that we're using today. So, you go over here to dimension, which is this tool right here. If you're ever lost or you can't see any of the tools, you can also always look at the search bar here and then type in. So if I just want to type in dimension, it pulls up dimension, and then you can simply press the enter key or click on this in order to select the dimension tool. Now you're going to click on this top line here, and then you're going to drag out. So it's a left click and then drag up in order to reveal the dimension text, and then left click again. At this point, you can type in whatever number you want. For this example, we're going to be using 50 millimeters, so you can just type in 50. As you can see, now this line that was blue is black, meaning that this is now defined, but this line is still blue. Basically what that means is just that, and I clicked escape there to exit out of the dimension tool, I can drag this around up and down. And because we have not yet defined what this length is, this is free to move around. It can even go negative down here, but it cannot move side to side because we have defined this to be 50 millimeters from this origin point here. We're now going to define this line here, and that's going to make the entire shape all black lines, which means that it's fully defined. So we're going to go back here to the dimension tool, or like I said, search it over here. Left click on that, and then left click on that right line. You then drag out with your mouse, and then left click one more time. That's going to show you whatever you want to type in for dimensions. I'm going to type in 50 again, so 50, and then enter. And now we have a fully defined shape. I'm just going to zoom out just a little bit here, and then click on this top. That's going to just show us our whole view of the object here. Now that we have our shape, what we need to do is take it from 2D to 3D. So how we do that is by using the extrude tool. The extrude tool is all the way over here in the top left, and we're just going to click on this with a left click. That's going to pop up this new menu right here. It's going to give us some options for the extrude. I'm going to use the right mouse button to kind of pan over just to show you what you're looking at. And this is our 2D drawing right here on the top plane. And you can just see it being extruded here. In order to determine how far out you want to actually extrude the object here, you can either drag the arrow here, which is going to change how far out it's being extruded by just left clicking and then dragging. Or if you want to be a little bit more precise, you can go over here to the depth option and then change that. I'm going to make that 50 millimeters as well. So we're going to have a 50 by 50 by 50 millimeter cube. Type in 50 and then press enter, or press the green check mark here. And now we have a 50 by 50 by 50 millimeter cube. I'm going to pan over now. That's done with the middle mouse button if you have a mouse, or you can generally do Control and then right click. So for a MacBook or a Chromebook, you would do 2-finger tap and then the Control button, and then just drag that over in order to pan, which is this motion here. As you can see, we now have a 6-sided cube that is 50 by 50 by 50 millimeters. If you want to check the dimensions when you're outside of the sketch, what you can do is just click on any of these lines here. So one of these lines like this, and it's going to pop up in that bottom right corner. So that's 50 millimeters here. If you have multiple lines selected, it's going to change to, for instance, the angle between these two lines is 90 degrees. If you would like to deselect these two lines, all you have to do is click the white space here, or you can click the space bar, and that will also deselect the lines. Now that we have our cube, we're going to talk about cutting shapes out of it. Basically, all that you're doing when you're designing this kind of thing is you're creating a shape and then you're cutting stuff out of it, just modifying it slightly. So I'm going to make a new sketch, and whenever it asks me for my sketch plane, instead of just being able to choose the top, right, and front plane, we can also select any of the faces of the cube. A cube, of course, has 6 faces, so we can select the top here, the sides, or the bottom. I'm going to select the top here for this example, and then I'm going to push the top button over here on the small right, or the small cube, in order to just center it on this. I'll zoom in just a little bit, and then pan over just to have it right there in the center of the screen for you. Next, we're going to talk about cutting. So this is going to bring us up to about 5 tools in this video, and we're going to be using a circle. So this is a center point circle. So what you do is you click on this, and now that it's grayed out, you can see that it's being used. And then just anywhere inside of this cube, all you have to do is just left click and then drag out in order to create a circle. And then left click again, and you have a circle of whatever width you dragged out to. I'm going to then push the dimension tool again, and then I'm going to click on the side of this here. That's going to be showing the diameter of the circle, which is 25.29 millimeters currently. We're going to leave it right around there. I'm going to define it as 25 millimeters, but you can define it whatever you want, and then press enter. Now that we have that, We can do the exact same thing as we did with the cube and extrude that by pushing the extrude button here. It's going to default to add, which means that you're going to be extruding from the top of the cube out farther. But we're going to change that to remove, which is actually going to cut a hole into the cube. You can do this by either dragging down and then clicking remove. And you can preview this hole here. Or, just as you did previously, you can type it into the box there in order to get a more precise measurement. If you ever want to go back and edit any of the features that you've done, and this is one of the really cool things about quote-unquote parametric design, is you can go back and change things and everything updates. So, for instance, if I want to make this hole go a little bit deeper, right now it's going 25 millimeters into the cube here, but if I wanted to go, say, all the way through, I can just go back to extrude here, and then I can just drag this all the way through, and now our cube has a hole in it. Or another example would be, what if we want to increase the size of this hole? All we have to do is go back to Sketch 2 here, double click it, and then we can change the 25 to 30. Now we push the green check mark, you can see that the hole is now bigger. While we're inside of the Sketch 2, I'm going to take a second to just fully define this once again. If you click on the top button here on the top right, and then zoom in a little bit just to see better, we can see that this is still a blue circle. We would like the circle to be black. You don't have to have everything fully defined all the time, but it's generally good practice. We know that the cube is 50 millimeters wide, so what we can do is we can click on the right side here, and then the center point of the circle, and then define that as 25 millimeters by left clicking, dragging down, left clicking, and then typing in 25. We can then do the same by clicking the top, and then the center point here of the circle, dragging out, left clicking, and then clicking 25 with the enter key pressed. Now if we push the green check mark, you can see that the hole is now perfectly centered. Alright, now that we have the basics out of the way, I'm going to teach you how to make an object that you might actually want to use in your regular life, which is this pin holder. It's a pretty basic shape, but all it is basically a circular extrude with a 2 millimeter thick base, which is fine for holding pins or whatever else on your desk. We could change the object that we currently have into this cup holder, but instead we're going to create a new document by pressing the button in the bottom left corner here. Insert New Tab. You then click Create Part Studio by left clicking it, and you now have a new Part Studio here. If you ever want to rename these files, you can simply right click and then click Rename. That would be 2-finger tap on a Chromebook or MacBook. I'm going to name this Pin Holder. Now we're going to do the same thing as last time, where we click on the Sketch button here, and then we're going to click on the top plane. You can then push the circle tool here, and we're going to click on the origin point here. Drag out, and then left click again. And this is where I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how you can use inches still inside of your designs. So whenever I think about 50 millimeters or so, I don't really know what that means. I can definitely visualize an inch or 2 inches though. Like I have a tape measure here. This is 2.5 inches. This is 6 inches, and so on and so forth. Much easier to visualize. So what you can actually do is push the dimension tool one more time, and then click on any of this blue circle. Then drag out and left click one more time, and you now have your millimeters here. What I'm going to do is type in 2.5 inches. So 2.5, and if I type in IN, it's actually going to pop up inches here. So you click on that, and then press enter, And you see that instead of showing just millimeters, it's now inside of inches, although it will display millimeters on the screen. So you can still use inches inside your designs, even if you set it into millimeters. It just translates out into your 3D printing programs a little bit better, and is generally better for smaller designed objects. I'm now going to extrude this outward. If we use our tape measure here on the cup that I previously designed, we can see that it's about 3 or so inches tall. So we're going to do the same thing here. I'm going to click the extrude button in the top left corner. You can see that it then changes to this extrude screen here. And then inside the depth, I'm going to type in 3IN for our inches. Press enter, and you can see that we now have a 3-inch tall cylinder. Press the green check mark, and then I'm just panning around just to get a better view of it. So that's great, but now we need a hole inside of it. And you know from last time exactly how to make a hole inside of something like this. So you click on the top here, press the sketch button in the top left, and then you can click the top view here in order to just center it on the actual cylinder top. Next, you're going to push a circle, and you can put it on the same origin point here, and then just drag out. So, how thick do we want the walls of this cup holder? Whenever I'm designing 3D prints, a general rule of thumb that I use is that 2 millimeters is generally a good wall thickness. So for this, we know that it is 2.5 inches around, so that's the outside diameter, and we want to have a 2 millimeter wall thickness. So to do that, what you can actually do is go to the dimension tool here, click on the blue circle, then drag out, left click again, and then we're going to type in 2.5 inches, IN, and then we're going to actually click the minus key, and then 4 millimeters, mm. We're doing 4 millimeters for a 2 millimeter wall thickness because on both sides of the circle, there's going to be 2 millimeters. So there's 2 millimeters here, 2 millimeters over here. If we just subtracted 2 millimeters, then it would be a 1 millimeter wall. If we subtract 4 millimeters, it'll be a 2 millimeter wall. Press enter. And now what we can do is extrude. So press the extrude button in the top left. That's going to automatically select our circle here, and it's going to default to add. We're going to click remove right next to add in the top left here, and then it's going to ask us for our depth. For something like this, it doesn't really matter too much about how deep this goes down, but I'm going to try to get it to the same 2 millimeters that we had previously. You can either do this by dragging the arrow down and just eyeballing it, and you can get pretty close that way, or you can do the same thing that I did a second ago. And inside of the depth tool here, you can do the 3 inches that it is tall, and this time you only subtract 2 millimeters one time. So 3 inches, 3IN, minus symbol, 2 millimeters mm. At this point, you press enter, and you can see that it's dropped down just a little bit more on my screen, and then push the green check mark. And there you go. You have a pencil cover, and there you go. You have a pencil holder just like mine. And now we're going to look at how you can actually 3D print this. I'm going to be using Bamboo Studio for this, but you can absolutely use whatever slicer you want. The process is going to be very, very similar. So I'm going to right click on the pin holder down here, or 2-finger tap on a MacBook or Chromebook, go to export, and it's going to give me my file name, format, version, and options. Right now it's inside of Parasolid. What we want is STL. So left click, and then go down to STL at the bottom. It says STL format binary, units, meter, resolution, medium, options download. We're going to change a couple of these. So units should be inside of millimeter, resolution should be fine, and then the options should still be download. And then pin holder is a fine name for this. You then click export, and that's going to download. So I'm going to push save here in the bottom right corner. If you're using a Mac or Chromebook, it might be a little bit different. And then we can download this file and actually put it inside of our slicer. So now that we have this, I'm going to open up my slicer here. I have 3 build plates because I was working on a previous project, but yours should probably just show 1. Then all we're going to do is, with our file explorer, we're going to drag over the pin holder STL into the slicer. So click and then drag. That's going to automatically place it. And in this case, we don't need to auto rotate or arrange it or anything. That's fine where it is right there on the center of the plate. Now we just click on slice plate here. And now it's sliced, so you can see the filament usage, the prepare time, model printing time, and total time. If we click print plate, it's going to let us select our materials here, and we can actually send it to the printer. Since I already have one, I'm not going to send this one to my printer, but if you have any trouble with it, please leave a comment down below. And also tell me what you would like inside of a future tutorial, if you want me to look at other softwares, or if you want me to look at more tools inside of Onshape. I just wanted to make a video that's as accessible as possible to people so that more people can go out there and design stuff. If you need any more help, you can also use that email that I used to sign up for Onshape to contact me, or just leave a YouTube comment down below. All the links for Onshape are going to be inside the description. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.